Hello, hello, Dale Majors here, and today I have an amazing interview to share with Alastair Humphreys. He's done amazing things, and the goal is that through the interview, everyone can become more adventurous, and there are several different tactical things you can start doing today that he shares. It was an amazing 45 minutes to spend with him, and I'm excited to share with you. So check it out. For those in my audience that don't know Alastair, he was named the Adventurer of the Year by National Geographic, which is pretty rad. Alastair, that's amazing. Like, congrats on that.
Yeah, that was a big surprise, but it's been a really nice thing to have for sure.
And I loved hearing about that when I was introduced to you, because I did 2.5 months of 3,500 miles.
Okay.
So, and it was epic. It was kind of life changing for me, and I really just want to go through. I've got several questions as they relate to adventure, and the goal of this call for me and for those that are watching is that all of us become more adventurous the minute we're done than we are right now.
Okay, that's a good goal.
So to start, how would you define adventure?
My answer on this has changed a lot over the last 20 years. So when I first started enjoying the idea of adventure when I was like 18, 19, 20, then it was all about tough, hardcore, push yourself to the limits. If you're not terrified, then you're being a wimp, that kind of adventure.
Yeah.
And then it's evolved through various phases of becoming more about curiosity and going places I've never been before and doing things that I've never done before. So less competitive with others and more just competing or pushing myself, I suppose. And then increasingly it's becoming more about just an attitude of how I try and go about my life. So trying to just dare myself to be a little bit bolder, a little bit more curious, a little bit more enthusiastic than I'm sometimes inclined to do. So trying these days to just find small ways to be adventurous every day. That seems to be where I'm at the moment. And I think there's a valid argument for all of those things. And there's certainly a time and a place for all of them in different people's lives, for sure. And I think actually that's quite an important point, is that what adventure means to me is different to what it means to you. And it doesn't mean that one of us is wrong. It just means I think we need to choose our own definition, and then we can work hard to try and pursue our own definitions of that word.
Yeah. So there's uncertainty, maybe a little fear, maybe a little just out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, definitely all those things. And I think some newness. So doing things that are new to
Yeah.
you. I think,
Cool.
yeah. And a lot of that comes under the umbrella of curiosity and enthusiasm. I think those two aptitudes cover most bases. I think, like your friend in his Teva sandals scrambling up the rocks. That's a adventure,
Yeah.
isn't it? In its own way.
Yeah. Awesome. My wife and I took our kids to Portugal 2 weeks ago, and our adventure was taking public transit everywhere.
Okay.
And so we got them all backpacks. So the baby, no backpack, 1-year-old, but the 4, 6, 8, and 10-year-old all had backpacks. And instead of driving to the airport, which takes 25 minutes, we walked out our door, locked it behind us with a keypad, and then we just walked out into the freezing temperature, 1.5 miles to the train station, and then took the train and started off that way. And I can tell you, within 20 minutes, I was telling my wife, I said, babe, I really don't know if this is what we need to be doing, because we plan to take trains from Paris to Porto and do it the hard way. Instead of taking 2 hours on a plane, we were like, we're going to take 2 days with a 2-day stop on the way to get to Porto. And we had all of those things, but it was an amazing trip.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, geez, I think going anywhere with a 1-year-old that doesn't involve the car and a huge bag of candies is a bold move.
Yeah. Well, it was newness and I wanted to quit. So I think it had those elements as you would define
Yeah.
as adventure. And
Yeah.
talking about life phases, so you've done all these big things, but now you have kids.
Yeah.
How old are your kids?
They're about 10 and 9, 10 and 8.
Okay. Awesome. So that, I guess, brings you into a different life phase where you choose your adventures differently.
Yeah, very much so. And it means that I'm much busier than I used to be. I have busy commitments like repairing the toilet and all the realities of everyday busy life. And so what that's really done for me in terms of my adventures, as it's forced me to squeeze adventures in around the margins, in around the edges of daily life, because there's a risk that when you're so tired and stressed and exhausted that you can kind of marginalize adventure. And I didn't want to do that. And the times when I have done that, I haven't really felt very good about myself or the world. And so I've had to reshift my big adventures into micro adventures, trying to find small, local, cheap ways to just squeeze some of the spirit of and the interest I got from big stuff, trying to squeeze that into small local things. So for example, this year, my mission this year, I've gone smaller than ever before. And all I've been doing this year is I climb a tree once a month. So the first Wednesday of every month, my Google Calendar pings at me and tells me to go climb a tree. And however busy I am, and actually, particularly if I'm busy, that's when you really need to do this sort of stuff. I just step away from the emails and I go to this tree near my house and I climb it, and I always climb it up to the same point. And the final bit is always a bit frightening. So I get a burst of terror once a month. And then I just sit there, look around, see how nature's changed in the last month, have a little think about my past month and what I might do in the next month, listen to the birds for a few minutes, and then climb down and bang, back into the craziness of emails and daily life. So that's an example, I suppose, of trying to squeeze in, just to make adventure a habit, really, but to consciously schedule time for it, which sounds ridiculous, but I think that's the world a lot of us live in these days.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask about your schedule because a year ago, I decided that I wanted more adventure in my life. And I decided that, that Wednesdays would be the day.
Okay.
So whenever I can, I try to leave all meetings and important things out of Wednesdays and have my focus days and other types of days on the other day of the week. And on this Wednesday, preparing for this call with an adventurer, I longboarded 43 miles. My wife and I went to a play at 7:00 that evening in a town, 45 miles away from us. So I woke up and left at about 7 a.m. and I longboarded there, took a nice little quick bathroom cleanup shower at the big glass bank building before we went in. But then we had a date, and it was just a fun way to have, hey, today is an adventure day and I'm going to longboard for 43 miles. And nice. It was awesome.
Yeah. I love getting changed in toilets. It just makes me feel that I still have some semblance of youth left in me, especially if you're going to go to the theatre and you come out looking smart, ready for a date. That's great.
Yeah. No, totally. I think I got stuck in the Madrid airport once for 6 days on a standby ticket. And when I wasn't married yet. I've been married for 10 years. I wasn't married. I didn't have obligations, and quitting would have been spending $1,500 on a ticket. So I was like, I can be here forever. I'm good. Yes. I'm just going to wait. And every morning, I would just go to the handicap bathroom and clean up for the day and look snazzy again. But nice. That's funny. So yes, handicap or bathrooms in general, especially maybe family use or dedicated bathrooms, can serve as great rest stations on an adventure.
Well, when I cycled through Japan, it was freezing. It was minus 20 Celsius. It was seriously cold.
Whoa!
Up in the north of Japan, and Japan is the cleanest place on earth. So clean that I actually slept one night in a public toilet. There are very few places in the world I would sleep in a public toilet. I slept in a public toilet because it was warm and it had running water, so I could cook my noodles, and it obviously was en suite. It had a toilet, and it was luxury. So yeah, I've slept in a public toilet before. So
dang, that's nice. See, I haven't, but I'll say yet. I've not done that yet. So that's awesome. How has adventuring affected your gratitude?
No one has ever asked me that question before, which is very good to ask unusual questions. It has made me very, very grateful for my position in life, by which I mean being born in a rich, liberal country and having a decent education. So basically, I've got a British passport and a university education, which means I am never, ever going to starve to death. And
Oxford, right? You went to Oxford.
yeah, I went to Edinburgh and then Oxford.
Yeah,
And
that's legit.
yeah, and that then means someone is always going to pay me some money, so I'm always going to have some food to eat. And
Yep.
having the passport I've got, well, at least until we screw ourselves up. But at the moment, a British passport is currently a useful thing to go anywhere in the world. And so often on my travels, I've met smart, ambitious, curious young people who just will never, ever, ever be able to get out of where they are. So yeah, that has I've put a big pressure on myself to really make the most of my potential and my opportunities. So I think the best education you can get is go travel to different poor parts of the world. I think that puts a lot of things in perspective for sure.
Yeah, awesome. As you say that, you started in the wealthy, rich place with a college education where, yeah, you can go to these places where people are essentially stuck. It reminds me of the movie Time with Justin Timberlake in it. You probably haven't seen it, but there's no money currency. It's only time currency. And they have to pay time to get out of zones.
Okay.
And we're essentially in a zone that would cost months of accumulation to enter.
Right.
But a lot of these people are stuck in a zone where they only have a few hours extra each day, then they have to go back to work. So if you ever want an interesting watch, it's Time by Justin Timberlake. I like that.
That is interesting because one thing I've really, really belatedly come to value is time. So money I can always get some more of because I was born in a nice country and I've got an education. I can always get some money, but time is ticking. And that is something that Adventures made me very, very conscious of, is time and not wasting it and getting on with things now, not deferring things to a future, which I hope will be there, but you have no idea.
Yeah, totally. How much more do you like your home as you've left it so often?
I am a little bit cursed, I think, because when I'm away on a big trip, I really miss home and community and a sense of belonging, and all those things you get from home. I really miss them.
Yeah.
And then I come home and it's really nice for a bit. And then I really, really miss the freedom of the open road. And so I fear the downside of doing a lot of traveling is I'm now cursed for life, I think.
Yeah.
Which I think is a genuine hazard of big adventures. People trying to do big adventures because of the misguided hope that somehow it will solve all your problems. But wherever you go, you take yourself and your baggage with you. So I think traveling the world means I've had an interesting life. I'm not sure it's been the solution to a contented life. There's a difference between the two.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really, I love that you say that, because everybody tries to sell these solutions to all of our problems. Where, for me, vacation and adventure, I wish that everyone could go on a trip for a month or two, because just to realize how great regular life is.
Yeah, that's true.
And that you can get bored of vacation, when no one's ever gotten enough. Like if you've never been waterlogged or drank too much water, you're always going to think, I need more water everywhere, But then when you have enough, you're like, man, I'm just happy to be with my family on a Saturday where I can wake up and we can do our chores and then we can go on a 5-mile bike ride together.
Yeah, that is nice. I think one of the things I've enjoyed about doing microadventures, so I pretty regularly bust out of town and just go sleep on a hill for the night. And
yeah, I've seen that in your videos. That's awesome. And you jump in a lake. When there's a lake, you always jump in it.
Always, yeah.
See, I love it. I want to be a guy that always jumps in the lake too. So,
but the good thing about sleeping on a hill is that it's not very comfortable. So sometimes it's beautiful. You see the stars, you see the sunrise, and it's magical and memorable. But it's not very comfortable ever. So always when I come back, I'm kind of tired. And so the next night when I actually get into my normal bed and I pull it up, oh, that's so nice. Similarly, when you haven't had a shower for a few days, you learn to remember it. So I think remembering to appreciate the small things is a good part of travel and adventure for sure.
Yeah. And that ties really closely into gratitude, of being
Yes.
grateful for
Yeah.
things that you didn't really pay much attention to.
When
Awesome.
I was cycling around the world, up in Alaska, a car stopped, and a lady. I was in the middle of absolutely nowhere, and a lady had driven like Alaska style hours to go and get pizza takeaway for her family, and she had this big stack of pizzas in her car, and she gave me one. She said, "Oh, I think we've got plenty for our family. Here you are." And then she drove off, and I just burst into tears. And so I think. To burst into tears over a pizza is a good thing to do every so often.
I love it. That is such a good story. Well, and that really ties into, how has your faith in humanity changed as you've put yourself out in all these different cultures?
My faith in humanity has changed enormously. From before I set off to travel around the world, I was very worried about the dangers of other countries. Very worried. And a lot of people warned me about the dangers. And then I set off cycling around the world, and you're in one country and everyone says, "Oh, watch out when you get to that next country. They're all murderers when you get to that country." And you go, "Oh, I'm really scared." And you get to the next country and they're all lovely. And they go, "Oh, how did you survive that past country? They're all terrible people back there." And they go, "Oh, well, they were nice there too." And I found that a universal thing. Of course, you have to be switched on and savvy and careful, and there are a few bad people in every country, probably an identical percentage of bad people in every country, but by and large pretty much everyone I've met around the world has been generous, kind, welcoming and friendly. And that completely includes countries. You can get two different countries with totally different politics and ideologies who are in some senses enemies of each other, but cycling through each one of them is a wonderful, kind experience. So yeah, by and large the world is a good place for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I love your burst into tears crying pizza story, because and I think that whatever happened there, I think is really the magical element that I love to see in the world, that you can see more when you're in the dumps, totally exposed, reliant on everyone else. Because I guess what happened is, somebody who had a pizza, who didn't owe you anything, who could potentially give up something by giving you one, and she wasn't required to give you anything, stopped out of the goodness of her own heart, kindness of her own heart, and just gave it to you, right?
Yeah.
Where it's that magical, it's those types of things where you just feel so blessed, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's wonderful. But my hope is that also she drove away feeling kind of good about herself.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And also good for her health. No one needs it. No one needs that many pizzas. But
Yeah.
a couple of years ago, I went busking through Spain. So playing my violin through Spain.
I love that story. I know. I watched your thing, The Midsummer
Okay.
Morning. So good.
So
I'll put a link to it in the video too. That's such a good video.
Okay, so the video is proof that I'm terrible at the violin, right? I'm not just being polite, British, modest. I'm terrible at the violin.
Yeah, you're not very good at the violin.
I'm not, and I had no money at all, and no credit cards, nothing. So I was 100% dependent on me going
on the generosity of others. Yeah.
And it was always anonymous generosity. What people didn't come up to me and say, "You're terrible." I'd say, "Yeah, I know, but I haven't got any money and I'm trying." And then they give me money. That never happened. People just heard me being rubbish, didn't say anything, and gave me money. Just total, pointless, wonderful kindness. It was an amazing month's experience to completely put myself at the mercy of the world.
So you probably got choked up over seeing a euro dropped into your thing.
Oh man, a euro, that is when you hit the riches. When a whole euro comes, you think, wow, now I can buy some bread and a banana and a tomato. I am king of the world today.
Yeah.
A lady on that trip, she gave me a peach, and that pretty much teared me up because I couldn't really afford expensive things like peaches.
Totally.
So I was like sniffing it, and I remember thinking, when I get home, I'm going to eat a peach every day for the rest of my life. Of course, I haven't, but I just savored it. I walked with it for ages, sniffing it and stroking it, a bit weird, just savoring. And that first bite of the peach, oh man, that was better than any sort of $100 restaurant bill for sure. It's proper proper gratitude from kindness. It was wonderful.
Yeah, I love that. That's so good.
Plus,
Okay.
it also helps if you're doing stuff that's physically tiring, really pushing yourself, pushing your body hard, learning what your body's really capable of. So you're aching and tired. That's how to make food taste delicious, isn't it?
Totally. The most amazing muffin I've had in the last year or two was 2 days ago on my longboarding trip, and it was just a Raisin Bran muffin with a very crispy top. And I'd been exercising all day. No, the best meals ever. If you want to make a bad meal good, you just have to walk 6 hours to it. And
hunger is the best sauce.
Yeah, hunger is the best sauce. That's a good one. That's so funny. Okay. I was going to ask about, intellectual adventuring, right? Like how your violin, you're busking across Spain, if that's the word, right? That had an element of intellectual adventuring because you had to learn how to play the violin and a whole new skill of just sitting in your house and figuring that out. Are you doing more of that?
I enjoy the brain part of adventure. Yeah. And I enjoy the creative side of adventure. So I spent quite a few years trying to teach myself how to take good photographs so I could tell stories through photography. And then I moved on to spending a few years trying to learn how to film my trips, because doing a trip and filming it and then telling the story of that are three very, very different experiences, which I enjoy. This summer, I spent a month cycling just around my little home area of Yorkshire, a whole month there, just really close to home, asking people what living adventurously meant to them. And for that, I decided to learn how to interview people. So I spent the whole month recording people for a podcast, which I'm going to do. So yeah, for me, it's very much a part of adventure is trying to think of some sort of skill, think of a creative angle and add that to it. Definitely.
Okay.
I have stopped playing the violin though, because that is really hard and I still am terrible.
Yeah, but now you have a new skill. Well, I'm going to copy your path of photographs, film, and interviewing, because it's the same thing I want to learn. And worst case, I'm just going to I'm going to document my family's adventure for their journal and for their for them to see in the future, and it'll be amazing.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a worst case to me.
Well, and then I guess best case, it can help other people feel confident with their families to leave and adventure. Because a lot of people, they say, well, when we have kids, we can't do that type of thing. I'm like, well, we took, kids are a lot tougher than adults, and they'll get over things, especially if they just think that that's the way that things are. So my 10-year-old has still not figured it out. He just goes along with it, We walked all of our kids into the rain in Portugal several days, and we were just going to get soaked. We had our umbrellas, several broke in the windstorm, but kids are tough. Has adventuring made you more creative in your job and just in life in general?
Definitely. I didn't think of myself as being creative in the least bit at all until my mid-20s. So I didn't do anything creative ever. And I was originally drawn to adventure just because I loved the tough guy, crazy, go and suffer in the rain kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. But what I really enjoyed about that kind of adventure, I realized a lot of people have done that sort of stuff and written about it really well. So I came to really appreciate travel writing, adventure and expedition writing. And I started reading lots and lots and lots of books. And from that, I then started to think, oh, maybe I could learn to write, and starting to write. And then writing led to pictures and stuff. And yeah, I guess I am now quite a creative. The fact I hesitate so much to say this word means I still feel uncomfortable, but I suppose I'm almost an artistic and creative person these days. But I feel very, very weird saying that, even though I write lots of books and take pictures and make films and stuff. So
yeah, you need to own it. You are an artist, yes. A creative master. Just own it. From watching and getting to know your stuff. Yeah, I think that's funny. I think we all discount some of those things.
It's amazing. I'm trying to design a book cover at the moment, and I'm using the same guy to design it, who designed my very first book cover 12 years ago. And when he sent me the first book cover 12 years ago, he just sent me one book cover, and I just thought, that's amazing. And I said, yeah, great. Now, 12 years on, he's really getting sick of me. I'm like, oh, what about if you change the fonts? Or what message is this font size doing? And on and on. So my thinking has very much changed. I dread to think what his bill is going to be for me this time round, but I like trying to get things right these days that never occurred to me years ago.
Yeah, that's awesome. So have you read The Alchemist or anything by Paulo Coelho?
Yes, it's up on my shelf here.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love
not only that, it's on my shelf next to the Laurie Lee Spain book.
Oh, really?
Look at that.
You know, I need to read one, and I wanted to end. So, well, actually, while we're here, another book or two for people that want to be, I find that an amazing way to get inspired, if you're not, because a lot of people just, you know, for health and fitness, I need to get inspired. So I read a few books, and all of a sudden I was like, I had the power to resist sugar, right? And I was working out more. So for adventure, I think you can use the same strategy. What's another book or two that you'd recommend for people to get a little more adventurous?
Well, far be it from me to advertise myself, but given what you're saying about being a little bit more adventurous and starting, then my own book, Microadventures, awesome. I wrote this book precisely for people who think that they don't have the time or the money or the skills or anything for adventure. So that is deliberately a book aimed at being a beginner. Absolutely.
Awesome. Hey, is that book on Audible, or do you have plans on putting it on Audible?
It is on Audible.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love Audible. Did you narrate it by chance?
This year I put on Audible my Spain book, my cycling around the world books, and Microadventures. I had some epic recording sessions. It was very weird to do these cycling books because I wrote that first book 12 years ago about a journey that began in 2001. So it was very weird to read about 2001 version of me. It was kind of a strange trip down memory lane.
That's awesome. I'll put those links in the description so people can.
So you were going to tell me about The Alchemist.
Oh, well, I was just curious if you had read that.
Okay.
And that's a book for me that is good at helping you just hold on to your own maybe inborn wisdom to say, yeah, you need to try things and do it. I love that when he says maktub, for it is written, there's just a more old, simple faith in the world, go about your journey message that comes from it. I think everyone should read it. I love it.
Yeah, I found it incredibly cheesy, but very powerful.
Yeah.
If you do read my Spain book, see if you can notice my stealing from The Alchemist on the final page of my Spain book.
Awesome. Cool. I will do that. As he ends up back in the same courtyard, you know. That's
the bit. Yeah. I said in my Spain book, I went to Spain to look for treasure, but realized it was here all along. So yeah, that was what I stole.
That's cool. Awesome. I love it. What do you do to stay fit?
I do a lot of running. Just head out my front door and follow my nose. And whenever I go places to do talks, I go for runs. So I do that. When I go to a new city, I do what I call running tourism, when I just run around the city.
Running tourism. That's a good tip that I think all of us can use.
I did a 9-hour run around New York.
Nice.
But 9 hours that also included a few donuts, a couple of coffees, hundreds of photographs, and I just ran and ran and ran. So running tourism. And then I also really like going to the gym and doing deadlifts and doing a lot of stretches to try and stop myself becoming decrepit.
Okay, so deadlifts, a really strong power strength exercise to bone density and just other.
Yeah, deadlifts, squats.
Yeah, the core exercises.
Yeah, things that hurt.
Yeah.
Rowing machine.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, I love the rowing machine. And I've got a younger brother who's a lot tougher than me. And he's big on deadlifts, power cleans, squats, bench press. Just do the core thing.
That's all you need. There's a great app called 5x5 Strong Lifts, which is the most brilliant beginner's progression thing. It's pretty much all you need.
That's awesome. So when you make toast in your kitchen, what else do you do sometimes?
I do press ups. Press ups when I make toast. I work in this shed now, which
Uh-huh.
is there's no toilet in the shed, so I have to go and pee in the trees. So every time I go for a pee, I do 10 pull-ups as well on the tree.
Yeah, nice. I love that you're um I love that. I thought that was so awesome. So, how many push-ups can you do before the toast, goes? And maybe you're eating lighter toast on days when you're not feeling as good.
Yes, exactly. You have
And
to
you're
earn the
burning
toast.
it when you feel like a boss,
Yeah,
maybe.
you have to earn
Um,
the toast.
that's awesome. So, I started doing 25 push-ups and 50 sit-ups 3 years ago. And even just that small thing was really big from like a small foundation standpoint to start doing more.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of power in people doing that. And you take cold showers.
Yeah, usually I start normal temperature, but I
Okay.
always finish with a blast of cold. I
Okay.
figure if you can handle the blast of cold, then you're ready for the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I started taking cold showers 2 years ago in December, and it took me a while. And when I'm sick, I have a hard time with it. But my strategy, which maybe I need to look at that again. I just went to cold and I just said, I'm gonna get under that thing without being a wuss.
Well, that's even better.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
get under it without being a wuss. And if I can do that, then I can pretty much do anything. And I'm amazing.
Yeah.
So it was kind of the story that I told myself about it. But when I'm not, I think that I do it for the same reason though that you're saying is if you can take a blast of cold, then it's that keeping you in kind of a fighting shape
Yeah.
for anything else.
Exactly. It's a
That's
metaphor for
awesome.
life.
You haven't read anything by any Everest expedition stuff by No Shortcuts to the Top by Ed Viesturs? Have you read anything by
No, I
Ed
haven't.
Viesturs
I've
or
heard of him, but no, I haven't read it.
those? He did all 8 of the 8,000-meter peaks.
Okay. Wow.
Interesting dude, and like
Yeah.
all of his friends are dead, so
Yeah.
we're not doing anything that should take us off of that should kill us. We're more like, yeah, that's why I love the microadventure piece you're doing. Okay,
Yeah.
you shared something in one of your other videos where you said eat dessert first, and this is something that you heard from somebody else, because when you eat your best thing first, the next thing is the best thing, and then the thing
Yeah.
after that is the best thing, and by the time you're at the bottom of your lunch bag and it's the worst thing, it's still the best thing. I thought that was
Yeah.
really funny.
Well, yeah, that's when you go camping or on an expedition. Yeah, do that. Eat your best thing first. Then you will always be eating the best thing. The hat tip for that is Brendan Leonard, who's got a great website called Semi Rad, which you'd enjoy.
Trips. How do you deal with anxiety before trips?
Oh man, I used to beat myself up for years before trips. And two things. One was just trying to make myself. So the Spain trip, I just said, just get to the start line. Focus on getting €1. Don't worry about anything else. Just do that. Get €1. And that's always, starting trips is so hard, but years and years of doing trips has taught me that starting trips is always hard. And therefore, this doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. It's just that starting stuff is scary. And that over time, I've built up the confidence. But now, mostly I just try and make myself get to the start line and take the first 100 meters, and then we'll worry about the rest after that.
Awesome. Alastair, you're amazing. I really appreciate the time that you've taken. I'll put all the links to these things and your
Great.
Microadventures and your Audible stuff in the description. Thanks for taking the time, and you're rad.
My pleasure. It's been really good talking to you. Thanks very much.
Okay, cool. We'll see ya.
Thank you. Cheers. Sorry, I have to dash off.
Yep, you're good.